And welcome to the pilot episode of Mattowarrior's Metal Madness. This is Mattowarrior here. I'm doing this podcast dedicated to all things metal and hard rock and otherwise. And just a little bit about me, I've been involved in the metal scene for many years. So I think I have a unique perspective as far as everything goes. And I grew up in a place where the metal scene was not exactly thriving, and during some really dark times for the genre in general. So I think I have a unique perspective coming as a maverick in this town that I grew up in and live in currently. So as far as that stuff goes. So what is this podcast supposed to be about? It's going to be some of my perspectives on metal and just the scene in general, the last few years and everything. I also want to do a lot of interviews with very interesting people in the metal scene. And admittedly, I have a lot of opinions that people have perceived them as a certain way, one way or the other, as far as I don't like a lot of what is called modern metal, but I do like a lot of it as well. It just depends on my taste, as far as a particular band or particular sound. I guess you could say I'm pretty old school when it comes to a lot of stuff, but came of age, right when the golden era of metal was dying, and then we got into the grunge alternative era. And I like a lot of that stuff, and I kind of went alternative too at a certain point, but then I kind of came back, crawling back to metal because of a lot of the bands that were coming out, in the late 90s. And I still like some of the bands that I got into when I took my detour for a while, and I even owned a pair of Jinkos. But, I never got into a lot of the new metal bands, with the Amulat metal bands like Korn or anything like that. And I certainly didn't like a lot of the metalcore bands, but I did like a lot of them too, because a lot of them had returned to a lot of the melody of the older metal. And one thing that was verboten in metal during the new metal time and grunge era and alternative era and all that were guitar solos or wanky quote unquote bits. So I was happy and relieved to hear some of these bands kind of return to some of that. So I think I have a unique perspective. I got into a lot of black metal, power metal, and prog metal and stuff, death metal. So that's probably going to be my focus, along with AOR and hard rock. So I've been doing some other stuff between me doing this blog, which gets its name. This podcast gets the name from my metal blog that I've been doing for about 10 years, and I've interviewed some bands and stuff, but I never really took it as seriously as I could. But I think launching into the podcast format is a better route for everything as far as my interests go. And I've done a lot of YouTube stuff, and so I'm not used to just talking into a mic and not seeing my face in the reflection of the camera, but I'll get used to it. But the first thing we'll start out is the news. Thought I'd have some corny music there for that. So let's see what's going on in the metal world right now. I'm just going to read some headlines. So, watch Volbeat play first show with ex-Slayer drummer John Det. Okay, I'm not really a big fan of Volbeat, so I'm not going to watch that. I guess their drummer came down with the worldwide health crisis virus that we are experiencing right now, which I will not talk about too much on this podcast for a few reasons. But anyways, that's it for that one. Let's see. Former TNT and Skid Row singer Tony Harnell celebrates 4 years of sobriety. Oh, okay. Well, I haven't really heard that much TNT. I didn't know he was in Skid Row. Poison's Ricky Rocket sides with Neil Young. over Joe Rogan and blank misinformation fight. Okay, well, I'm not gonna talk about that stuff on here all that much unless it comes up in an interview. So that's about that. I'll just make a short statement that why don't people try to debate people in public forums instead of calling them to boycott or cancel? That's all. That's all for that part. So watch Corey Taylor sing Dio's Rainbow in the Dark with Steel Panther on Years to Years Shipped Rock Cruise. I'm not going to watch that, but I'm not a big fan of Slipknot or Corey Taylor, so I don't hate him or anything like that. It's not like I sit here and I hate that guy. I never got into that. Chris Barnes calls out Cannibal Corpse with high ticket prices on upcoming tour. Okay. All right, well, they probably are charging high ticket prices. There's a lot of reasons for that right now, obviously, for various reasons they're doing that, but there's probably a lot of cost to that. So I don't know. I'll be neutral on that one. I like some of Chris Barnes' work with 6 Feet Under with those cover albums. I think they're goddamn hilarious. So keep doing those cover albums, Chris. Ozzy Osbourne's Crazy Train reimagined by Steve Stevens and the Stream Revolution. Now that sounds like something I can get behind. I'm not going to watch it because copyright, of course. Saxon's Bifford. I don't think guys like me retire. And they certainly haven't. They have like a shitload of albums. I think it's awesome that they keep pumping out albums and stuff. And I think certain other British metal bands could learn a lesson or two from Saxon or Judas Priest as of late. Well, except for that stupid botched person lineup change that Priest did a couple weeks ago. That was like, what was that all about? I don't know. But as far as production goes, I'll just say that. Producers and trying to update their sound in an intelligent way. A certain other British metal band could learn a thing or two from them. Machine Head's Rob Flynn and Jared Massern perform entire Catharsis album for 4th anniversary. I had never even heard that album. I like a couple of Machine Head albums, okay. I like The Blackening. I like their first album. I'm not really a big fan of theirs, though. I never got into the groove metal stuff as much as like the original thrash and stuff. So All That Remains releases part 2 of the new The Fall of Ideals documentary. No idea. I don't even think I've heard them. Man, I'm a boomer. I'm not a boomer for real, but Korn's monkey said he had blank virus for a second time. I've got a kick-ass immune system. I'm not going to read this article, but that's kind of hilarious. I mean, just for various reasons. I mean, that's something you're not supposed to say, as far as you're not supposed to mention those types of things. So I'm not gonna go into that. That's a very verboten response to questions about that for some people. Ex-Skid Row drummer Phil Verone says Sebastian Bach is in a war with himself. Well, yeah, Sebastian Bach has been pretty cringy as of late, I'll admit. I agree with him on some stuff, and I disagree with him on a lot of stuff. He's constantly in the press about one thing or another. It's just like Kiss or something. I mean, I guess that's the way you get PR for yourself and make more sales or something like that. So Alice Cooper is working on 2 entirely different kind of hard rock albums. That sounds kind of cool. I do like Alice Cooper. I'm not like a huge fan of his newer stuff, but I haven't heard a lot of it too, but I think it's awesome. That's cool. Maybe it's of course it's going to be a concept album. It's Alice Cooper. Duh. Watch Jeff Tate perform Queensryche's Empire and Rage for Orders albums in State College, Pennsylvania. So one thing about Jeff Tate is that I've done a lot of I used to do a lot of commentary on him on my blog and stuff, and whole Queensryche situation, but I'm going to have to hand it to him because I've seen the last 3 or 4 years him vastly improve at vocals, like get back to a lot of the shape that he was in back in the day. I don't know what was happening to him like 10, 11 years ago, but he was obviously going through something, I think. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate too much, but it just seems like a lot of things have returned to, a lot of his stuff has returned to form. And in the meantime, oh try to put too many opinions in this because hopefully I'll be interviewing some of these people. But I would say like the Queensryche the new Queensryche is good, but it just has, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but I mean, it's like Pink Floyd. Like you listen to Momentary Lapse of Reason, all the stuff is there, but it's missing this depth to it. And then you listen to Roger Waters, solo albums from the mid '80s, and it's like it's too wordy and too verbose or whatever. But yeah, I mean it's the same kind of thing with the two camps. I always compared the two, and it's more than ever it seems like that. But I would definitely see that show. But I haven't heard a lot of Jeff Tate's newer stuff. I really didn't like the Queensryche stuff with him towards the end of his tenure with the band, so I'm not really interested in too much of that, but him playing Rage for Order all the way through sounds fucking brilliant. Tobias Forge talks about the advantages of being ghost leader and primary songwriter. Well, I'm someone that is in the same position, but I'm not going to talk about that too much right now. Working on my project has been quite challenging. Hopefully I will have a new album out this year. But yeah, I'm not big into Ghost, but I like their first album, and I like some of the, I would love to see them live. I think they'd probably put on a good show. Bumblefoot, Michael Starr, Nita Strauss, others pay tribute to Eddie Van Halen on Shiprock Cruise. Yeah, okay, whatever, okay. I just some of these news stories, I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm just like kind of ambivalent. Cliff Burton was so nervous when Geddy Lee came to see Metallica perform. Okay, that's cool. Slash featuring Miles Kennedy and Conspirators. I don't care. Sorry. King's X guitarist Ty Tabor released his first single, Sister Genocide, from upcoming solo album. Yeah, that's cool. Kill Switch Engage, rejoined by singer Howard Jones. Okay, all right. Now we'll talk about more gossip here. Corey Taylor to Machine Gun Kelly. You don't have to get to run your mouth about bands that have been doing this for 20 years. Okay, I have no idea why there's a feud, but that's pretty funny. I have no idea. Let's see what happened here. I'm going to look it up real quick. That sounds interesting. Let's see. Being 50-year-olds and wearing a weird fucking mask on fucking stage talking shit. What? Oh, he was actually on the album. Okay. So I guess Corey Taylor was on a Machine Gun Kelly album, or apparently, I don't know. All right. There's a feud about some of their stuff. But, I mean, Kiss are 70 years old and they wear makeup on stage, like full kabuki makeup, so whatever. So that's kind of funny. That was an interesting article. And the next one, George Lynch explains why he only performs 3 songs with Dokken at reunion shows. Okay, so this is going to sound harsh, but I have watched numerous clips with Dokken over the last couple of years, and I can't take it. It's hard to say this, but at least, okay, I'm going to say this. So at least David Coverdale tries, right? David Coverdale doesn't sound as good as he did in the 80s either, but he tries. It almost sounds like black metal sometimes, the way he screams and stuff. And he has humility to him. He's able to say, fuck it, I'm going to get it. I think he hired a second singer for the upcoming final tour or whatever. I mean, a lot of bands are going to do that in the future, I predict. They're going to do this, because this is what Manila Road did when I saw him, because Mark Shelton used to sing, but he only sang a couple of songs when I saw him, Manila Road. I think this is the next trend with these older bands. They're going to have a second singer, usually, I mean, not necessarily off stage, but helping them out. Dokken, it's rough. It's just, it's really rough hearing that stuff right now. I mean, I guess they could tune lower too, but it just I don't know. It's hard to watch. Speaking of that, watch Ted Nugent perform national anthem at Texas Walker County Warrior Banquet. No, thank you. I'm not going to watch that. I'm not going to watch. I guess it's an Alan West campaign. enough said about that. It's pretty funny. I don't care, I mean, I'm less whatever. We're not going to talk about that stuff on here. So, but we may. I'm not going to censor myself, but I'm not going to talk about that stuff. But yeah, I'm not interested in watching that. It might be kind of good. Who knows? But Black Veil Brides, Andy Biersack addresses controversy over new Superman coming out as bisexual. I don't know. Some of these comic books, like, I'll say this, like, they seem to like to feed on this controversy and to sell more copies of their comic books, and like, whereas like you look at Image Comics and they'll have like a bisexual or LGBT or whatever character, and it naturally like fits with the story that they made. Whereas like some of these mainstream companies, they'll do a story. It just seems like pandering. It's just like they're trying to shock people. There's really no shock anymore. It's just like it's just dumb. It's just like Image Comics will make something that's actually an edgy comic in itself, and it will have characters that are already, a certain gender or certain sexuality or whatever. It's not like in your face in this like corporate way that these companies do. So I mean I love Image Comics. I don't like Marvel and DC. They're just it's just annoying. So I don't really care that this Superman came out. But I mean, it's just I read a little bit of it. It's just whatever. Who cares? Next, anyways. Volbeat's John Larson tests positive for blank virus. Ex-Slayer drummer John Deddy to fill in. Okay, well, yeah, okay. Newfound Glory's Chad Gilbert. I am officially cancer-free. All right. I don't think I've ever heard that band. Kid Rock says he will cancel concerts where blank mandates are enforced. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about this in this episode, so that's not going to be something I talk about. I'm going to try to avoid talking about that on here. I have other platforms that I do talk about those subjects, but I will not talk about it on here, at least for this episode, but who knows. David Coverdale has no idea why Led Zeppelin reunion isn't happening and would love for Jimmy Page to have his dream fulfilled. Yeah, it would just be a nightmare. I don't know. Some of these bands reuniting just doesn't sound the same, So, I don't know. I would actually rather see Whitesnake at this point than Led Zeppelin, honestly. It's just not the same. I mean, it's cool, but it's not the same. Gene Simmons weighs on Britney Spears' conservatorship battle. No one should have any say regarding her finances. Okay, well, at least he's for someone's liberty at this point. I don't know. I don't really care. It's just dumb. Who cares? I'm just doing this for the news section, and I'll move on pretty quickly from this. One more page to do. Dorothy releases new single, announces headlining tour. I have no idea who that is. And I probably don't care. But maybe I would. Steve Vai thought he was done playing guitar after undergoing surgery. Holy shit, that's messed up. Well, that's good. He did not lose the ability. Former Megadeth members Dave Ellefson and Chris Poland reunite to honor a legacy of Scar Samuelson. That's cool. I would actually watch that. Amorphous drops music video for new single On the Dark Waters. And I would watch that. It's probably a good album. Valerie Bertinelli says Eddie Van Halen's second wife moved out of their house a few years after his death. Okay, more gossip. I don't really care. Whatever. I mean, I care about Eddie Van Halen. I just don't care about that. Paul Stanley was devastated when Gene Simmons got to sing God of Thunder on Destroyer. Well, to be fair, though, it's iconic, his performance on that song. Like, I know Paul Stanley and Bob Ezrin wrote that song, but it is such a good thing for Gene Simmons. I mean, Almost Human almost surpasses it on Love Gun, but I really do like God of Thunder. I think it's an influential song. The way that it was taken versus the original version, which is good as well, was iconic and influential to so many bands. A lot of extreme metal bands. Just like that was the first like extreme song, quote unquote, they've heard was the original, not the original God of Thunder, but the one on Destroyer. Hailstorm cancels European evening with tour. Whatever. I did like their cover of Still the Night. I listened to that recently. It was kind of cool. Bruce Dickinson won't pilot Iron Maiden's plane on upcoming tour. Okay. I don't know. Whatever. Meshuggah releases new single, The Abysmal Eye, from upcoming Immutable album. That might be pretty good. Dave Mustaine says new Megadeth album release has been moved back again to the summer. What the hell is going on with that? Watch Shinedown perform new single Planet Zero live for the first time. Don't care. Never was a fan. Sorry. Exodus's Steve Zetro's Swayza. You're either a metalhead or you're not. Well, that kind of fits. Here is new video of Lamb of God performing with Phil Demmel on this year's Shipwrecked cruise. Don't care. Asia, featuring original members Carl Palmer and Jeff Downs, announces 40th anniversary celebration. Don't care. Metallica releases Met on tour video edit of Trapped Under Ice performance from first 40th anniversary concert, whatever. Jason Newsted says he's been really, really frugal with his Metallica earnings. That's why I still have them. Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's good to make some financial decisions that are beneficial. Papa Roach, enough said. Ex-Cannibal Corpse singer. I like this one. I like this feud. Ex-Cannibal Corpse singer Boris Barnes became physically ill after watching Death Metal Roundtable featuring Corpse Grinder. Well, I don't know. I think he's kind of barking up the wrong tree there, or growling up the wrong tree. Corpse Grinder has been part of Cannibal Corpse for like almost 30 years now, I think. It's like he's been a singer longer in that band than Chris Barnes was. So it's just kind of sour grapes, I think. It's almost like if Paul Di'Anno still attacked Bruce Dickinson, just all of a sudden came out and said that. It's just like, and I love Paul Di'Anno, by the way. It's kind of sour grapes. Just keep doing those cover albums, Chris. they make me laugh, like the AC/DC one. Sebastian, okay, I'll talk about this a little bit, even though I'm not supposed to, because I'm trying to stay away from that on this podcast. But Sebastian Bach throws shade at David Draymond for siding with Joe Rogan over Neil Young in blank virus misinformation fight. So I just have to say this about that. So I'm going to actually point out the hypocrisy of David Draymond, because he has always been like, if I'll just put it this way. So I am not like promoting a political ideology one way or the other with regards to Israel. I am of Jewish ancestry, so I do not like just this as a disclaimer here. But I will say that if this was like this knowing David Draymond's record in the past, if Joe Rogan was Palestinian, he would probably call for his ban off of Spotify. Just the truth. Let's just be upfront. So both of them are dumb. I mean, in various ways over the past. Now it is interesting, this battle. Looking at various sides and various people that are totally being. I'll just put it this way. It includes me in some ways. Totally being different of. Politically than they used to be in the past and stuff regarding various things. I'm just going to put it that way. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Watch Adrian Smith or Richie Kotzen perform in Roseville, California. No. All right. I think I'm getting with the end of news because we're going back to the 27th now. All right. That's about all for the news now. I'm going to talk about what we're going to talk about on this podcast. So I'm going to get a drink of water really quick and be right back. All right, everyone, I'm back. So this episode is dedicated to an album that came out in 2007, and I feel like it's been underappreciated by many people, and it's a compilation album, but it's something that I've been thinking about for a long time, because when it came out, I was really kind of just like looking forward to the first part of the album, because it was the original lineup of Danzig, and it's the lost tracks of Danzig. So I wanted to talk about it today because I feel like it represents something that to me was pretty apparent when after the first lineup broke up of Danzig. And it's one of those opinions that people do not share. I've been attacked for it in the past, like for questioning anything Danzig does artistically or creatively or musically or whatever. So this album was basically an album that covered the gamut from 1987-88 until like 2004 as far as what it comes out, what came out on it. So the first disc is basically the first lineup. I would say that it was like almost like a unreleased album that could have come out before Danzig 4, but after Danzig 3. And it's interesting because most of the songs are the first lineup on that first disc. So except for Come to Silver, Deep, and Warlock. So yeah, Pain is Like an Animal. It's a pretty good song. When Death Had No Name, which was a song that they had as a B-side sort of on one of the singles, and I can't remember which one it was, but they did it several times. Angels of the Seventh Dawn is a good song. You Should Be Dying. Really good songs. I mean, it sounds like something that came out, like I said, between 3 and 4. And then Cold, Cold Rain, which is like a Sestina's kind of a ballad. They did a cover of Buick McCain by T-Rex. That one was okay. And then When Death Had No Name, I think that was the Danzig 3 version. Satan's Crucifixion, pretty doomy song. The Mandrake's Cry. White Devil Rise, which is a controversial song because it's kind of written in response to Louis Farrakhan. Come to Silver, which is a ballad that I believe Johnny Cash did, but this is Danzig's version. It's acoustic. Deep and Warlock, which are kind of Danzig 5 songs, I believe. And the thing about those songs is I didn't like Danzig 5, but the way that the structure of the track listing on this album makes it work in a certain way, because there's so much variety on this compilation. As when you buy a Danzig album, you listen to it and you're like, okay, these songs, all fit the same vein. But this compilation makes it a little bit more interesting that there are those like more electronic songs at the end of the first disc. So I thought it was a welcome, refreshing change, to have this type of variety on an album from Danzig. So the second disc is a surprise one, Bill, because this is not an era that I really liked all that much. Because after Danzig 4, I just thought the original lineup, I just thought the lineups did not have the staying power that the original lineup did, nor the songs. But the surprise comes in where these songs are probably better than the original albums that they were intended for, or any songs off those albums. So you have Lick the Blood Off My Hands. I think that's from 6. That's a really good, catchy song. Crawl Across Your Killing Floor. Now that's phenomenal. I would put that in the first 4 album, quality anytime. And that has Todd Youth, rest in peace. Basically, playing all these solos over a kind of a song that could come from 2 or 3, actually. Very good song. I Know Your Lie. I think that's a cover. No, maybe it's not. Caught in My Eye is a cover by the Germs. It's pretty good. Cat People. Cat People was always an awesome song. David Bowie did it for the movie Cat People. Bound by Blood kind of reminds me of Lucifuge. Who Claims the Soulless is good. Malefical. Soul Eater. Those aren't as good as the earlier songs, so they're still good. Dying Seraph. Lady Lucifera. I can't remember. Those don't have they're not as memorable as the other songs. Underbelly of the Beast and Unspeakable, both remixes of songs, but again, like in the previous discs, they sound good in the track listing. And there was basically some of these songs were not leaked before, but there was like a 900 number in the 90s that you could call. I guess Eerie Von set it up or something. And you can hear some of these songs like on that hotline or something like that. He would play these clips of these unreleased songs. So there were other songs too. Now, I've heard about other songs being recorded, not only for Danzig, but also Sam Hain, like The Howl 2 and some other stuff. And they were never released. I don't know where they are, but he would be good to do another Lost Tracks of Danzig. So my point in going over this is basically that a lot of his songwriting is still just as sharp as it was, but I think someone needs to it's almost like he needs an outside ear to say, okay, that song would be great on this album. That song wouldn't, because these songs, like I said, some of them are better than the actual album they come from, or most of the songs off there. And then there was also, what was this ballad? There was another ballad off Death Red Sabbath that never came out, Long Dark Road, and that was never put on there. And it sounded like a really good ballad. So Glenn Danzig has confirmed that the song was never intended for inclusion on the album. I think someone having an outside ear, an outside, dare I say, producer, because some of these rockers, they get older and they're kind of set in their ways, and they have a lot of people saying yes to them. I'm just going to say that, and sometimes it serves them well to have someone outside come in and just kind of give them a little bit of a different perspective, just like Andy Sneap with Judas Priest. I don't like Firepower as much as some of the previous albums, but the production is definitely up to par to a modern metal recording. And I think when these people have just so much of a insular mentality, some of these musicians and stuff. And Glenn Danzig in 1985, when he was recording for Sam Hain, he did most of the production himself and all the songwriting, obviously, but it's just like it was fresher, and it just, some of these later Danzig albums, they could use for more variety and just better guitar tones and production and everything. I'm just being completely honest here. Now, the weird exception that people might not really understand, but I really did like Danzig Sings Elvis, because it reminded me if Sam Hain would have recorded an Elvis album, and I liked that vibe. I really did. But as far as newer albums, I guess Death Red Sabbath's okay. Circle of Snakes. There's parts of albums that I really like. There's parts and that's why Lost Tracks of Danzig is so good, because these songs are just really good. As far as, even though it is a compilation, the songs obviously didn't fit their album. Maybe he thought they sounded too much like Lucifuge or something like that. But Crawl Across Your Killing Floor, I'd easily put up there with the first 2 or 3 albums as far as quality goes. Same with Bound by Blood. Even Lick the Blood Off My Hands. I like that better than Wicked Pussycat, even though it's kind of like that same kind of jumpy kind of song. And obviously the first disc, we all know that is the original lineup for the most part. So yeah, I highly recommend checking out this album. I think it's very underappreciated even for Danzig fans. And I think it's really an indication that sometimes he doesn't know the best songs to put on a record. I mean, that was this Amazon review years ago that I read when it first came out of this compilation. Someone had said that, and I agree with that completely, because some of these songs are top-notch quality. And I guess there were some other songs not released. Zodiac Summer remain untitled. This Wikipedia article about this is very dated. I remember reading this back in the day. So there's probably a lot more tracks. It's just like anybody, like Prince or Frank Zappa or something. I don't think Danzig is as prolific as those guys, but he definitely has a lot in the archive, and a lot of stuff that remains unreleased that should be released, in my opinion. Especially Sam Hain. I want to hear some of those other songs from Sam Hain too. So I know I have kind of a controversial fan, because controversial viewpoint about some of this, and people aren't really, you were there. If you were there back then, you would know why people have this opinion about Danzig's music now that people may not agree with necessarily, that are newer fans, but it's you had to be there to really understand the mystique that was there. There was a mystique about it. It came out, it was all a unified front that the fashion and a lot of what they put into this Danzig project, the Danzig, the first 4 albums, the lineup, the look, the hair, they all dyed their hair except for Chuck Biscuits. They all wear similar clothes. They all worked out, tattoos. They this like sleazy, evil biker weightlifter kind of vibe. I remember going to the record store and seeing like the actual first Danzig album, and it kind of creeped me out because I looked in the cover. I'm like, who the hell are these guys? I wouldn't fuck with them, I was only like 10 or 11 years old, but like it just like freaked me out seeing that album. And there was a mystique to it, and a production and an energy to it. It was like this weird, like unreleased, like underground 70s, like occult. I would almost say like occult rock, like like Ghost, or like, I'm not saying it's like Ghost or Lucifer or something like that, but it was like this, this weird kind of underground band that was underappreciated, that came out in the 70s and nobody knows anything about, because there were no like credits on the original sleeve and stuff, like on the not the sleeve, but like the actual cover, I should say, because it just had the skull on it, and then you opened it up and you saw that, and then you pulled out the sleeve and you saw the credits. I'm just saying like on the actual cover it was this skull and that's it, and you're like, what the hell is this band? It had one of those it had a mystique to it and an energy to it, and and it's like, I think even that first album, after the first album, they lost some of that mystique, but obviously you can't keep that mystique forever unless you break up and just do that first album, but but the first 4 albums, and that the way that they constructed songs, the way that they wrote songs and recorded them, was definitely lost once the original lineup broke up and Rick Rubin departed. But obviously I'm not a big fan of Rick Rubin's later work. I think he just got too lackadaisical, I guess you could say the word is. And then some of the mixing and mastering stuff is awful too, that he's kind of put his stamp on lately. So, including Death Magnetic, which was awful in the clipping of the album. Of course, some of my own music clips too, I'll admit it. Sometimes, I'm trying to get better at mastering and mixing, or getting some help with it, hopefully too. But it was something that you kind of had to be there to really understand the mystique that Danzig perpetuated in the early 90s, late 80s, because now it's like, there's memes about him with kitty litter or his bricks at his house, and it's like, oh yeah, that's funny, and he was on Portlandia and it was funny. But like back in the day, you're kind of creeped out by the guy. Like it was kind of like, oh, who is this menacing character, doing the songs, and as a preteen or adolescent, when you heard it, it was kind of this it was like, wow, this is kind of like forbidden, like this Mother video on the Jukebox Network that was just like paid. There was this thing called the Jukebox Network. It was like this request, like public. It was almost like it wasn't public access, but it was like this weird cable channel that you could call and you could pay like this 900 number to request a song. And people always requested She Rides and Madonna's Erotica. And I was like, whoa, what is this? So I bought all the Danzig albums, all the Misfits albums, all the Sam Hain albums. And then there was a time where I did not have them. That's a whole other story I might tell sometime. But some of them might be worth more money if I wouldn't have gotten. Well, I'll tell that story another time, because I think it's pretty interesting and kind of sad and tragic. But I will tell that story about how I lost all those original albums at one point. But yeah, I think anybody should do well to check out the Lost Tracks of Danzig. It's just a momentous compilation for any fan of the original lineup, and also even the later lineups. And it made me think of those later lineups in a different light, because a lot of the albums that Todd Youth were on, I think he was only on 1 or 2. I think actually 777, I think he was only on that one. Luciferi or whatever. I think he was only on that one, but even that one, he doesn't really use his full range of his technique on that album. But on the Lost Tracks of Danzig, he definitely does, like on Crawl Across Your Killing Floor, which is, I would put up there as the best song Danzig released after 1995, period. And a lot of those songs are actually really good stuff. So check it out. I don't like how Tommy Victor sounds in Danzig either. I like him in Prawn, but I don't like him in Danzig. I'm just giving I've gone really talking about my own tastes a lot heavily in this podcast, but that's fine. And everybody has their own tastes and their own opinions. And it doesn't mean that interviewing people, I'm still going to interview people and have my own opinion at the same time. I think that's fine. But, this is just how I see things, And as far as Danzig goes, I still hold those first 4 albums as kind of the golden plates, so to speak, of the Danzig religion, the Bible, pretty much, And Lost Tracks of Danzig is a good, lost gospels of Danzig, in a way. So, well, that's about all for this podcast. I'm going to try to, I look forward to interviewing some musicians that I like and doing a lot more with this podcast. You'll see that in the coming months. And you will see a lot of interesting conversations, I'm sure. That's about all. Peace out.